Michaela Timson has been brilliant. She's been absolutely brilliant since coming into the starting lineup. And I got to be real here. I'm somebody who watched so much KK Timson in the offseason. And not only did I not believe she had this in her, I didn't think she was a WNBA player. And I'm very, very, very happy to be wrong. These are scenarios where whenever you talk about players, and you can be right, you can be wrong, whenever you make takes about certain players and takes about teams, you can always be wrong. I love when I have a negative take on a player and I'm proven wrong, especially when it's on a team I support. So, nothing would make me happier than Lexi Hull re-finding form. I've criticized Lexi so much, but nothing would make me happier than Lexi re-finding form, because I think Lexi re-finding form is the difference between this team being contending pretenders or pretending contenders, whichever one is a tier below contenders, and being legit contenders. And Mo Billings being a legit spark off the bench and Lexi Hull coming back is the difference between this team being contenders and title favorites. They are not good. But it is a mad one here, where it says here, in February of the past season, Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White and her staff took a trip to Miami to see some of their players compete in rivals. But there's one player they were prepared to have a potentially uncomfortable conversation with, rising second-year forward Michaela Timson. At the time, I think as coaches, we felt like she was a little bit behind where we'd hoped she'd be. White said after the Indiana Fever's win against the Dream. We went down there in February, just talked about her, hey, come in early. And so Timson did. And look, I think everybody has had criticisms one way or another of Stephanie White. As have I. Do I think Stephanie White is the right coach for this team? Fuck no. But when you hear stories like this, she basically went and looked at a player. She went down to Unrivaled to basically have an uncomfortable conversation with a player, being like, look, basically it's like, come in early, you didn't get enough better. And which is why I was so surprised. So if they were watching KK Timson overseas and seeing how much of a lack of progression there was, I feel like when you're, from their perspective, you should have been more pushing at signing Emma Chikova, who was like the real young star. Her and Pauline Astier were the young stars of that team. But that's not even the point. But they're not wrong. They're not wrong. Obviously, look, we don't see what happens between February and May at the start, or February and April at the start of the season. And not only that, the improvement for KK Timson from day one of preseason to now is night and day. Most improved player awards always come from who plays better on a season by season basis. But I don't think there's been a more improved player from game 1 to game 30 whatever than KK Timson, because I thought KK was even borderline unplayable to start this season. I didn't think she was good, and I watched her play overseas. All of her flaws were still there. She didn't know where to stand. She didn't know how to really use her athleticism. A lot of her defensive, she got a lot of defensive highlights because she was making up for bad defensive plays. As in, she was making a bad defensive play and blocking shot and recovery. And it's I didn't think she had it in her. And I'm glad to be wrong. And I'm very glad looking at this that the Indiana Fever basically were like, look, we don't like how you've been developed. Come back. It's okay, yeah, we've got training camp now. Come in early. You come in early. And obviously they worked with her. And look, there's a lot to be said about certain development teams, and I think we can really question what they did to Caitlin Clark after year 1. I think we can really question what they did to Caitlin, because for me, Caitlin Clark was, I think they bulked her up too quickly. I think they did a lot of things with Caitlin where I'm I didn't love it. I really didn't love it. And I think a lot of us were in the same boat. That we didn't love what they done in the offseason. But when you keep Porter there, who obviously can work with a certain type of player. We saw it with the Dijonais of the world. Keith Porter can really work with athletes. He can really work with those type of players. I don't know how he can work with a Caitlin Clark, but that's why you have Rob Dozier in there. You have Rob Dozier, who, if, like, again, Caitlin doesn't have any holes in her game anymore. Except for maybe the shooting going right. But, like, she's attacking the basket going left. She's finishing with her left hand. And the annoying thing is that they had their KK Timson 2.0. They had their Justine Passat, who was the opposite. Like, she was refined, but didn't have the raw, she wasn't able to get the raw ability. As in, her handle was good, her length is insane, her shooting was insane. Like, it just, whereas KK was pure athleticism and needed to be refined, Passat was refined and needed to learn how to be 6'4" with a 7-foot wingspan. And they had that player. They had that player genuinely. And they messed it up. That being said, again, it's a really, really, it's a really tough one when you're seeing players, when you see teams give up on young players that have potential. And, like, as an individual, I was tempted to give up on KK Timson. I really was. And the scary thing is, like, she works at Keith Porter. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't even see this part here. I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And I work a lot with Keith Porter, said Timson. I work a lot with him. The post moves, having great footwork, and just being confident in what I do. Being patient and setting up shots for what I want instead of allowing defense to push me off the block or settle for different shots. Sitting in the post-game press conference after 20-point win, Timson smiled. She discussed what went right for her. I got a lot of people in the crowd. She said, cheer me on today, and I appreciate the sport. I gave them a great game today. Yeah, you did, said Caitlin Clark. I think she's worked really hard, Clark added. She's very curious and wants to learn, always in the gym, always getting better. This has a mentality. She wants to serve her teammates. It's the best thing you can have as a young player, and it's really showing. The hilarious thing about this is that her and Caitlin Clark are born the same year. It's like, oh yeah, young players need to do this. This isn't. It's like, yeah, they're born the same year. But yeah, it is. It's incredible what KK's done. And look, I didn't think she had it in her, and I will be extremely happy to be wrong when it comes to players that I've been when you're critical of, and especially like when you're in the position I'm in, where you're going to make a lot of takes. You're going to make a lot of good takes. You're going to make a lot of bad takes. And when you make laughably bad takes, like even if, like when you look at KK Timson, I think there was reason to believe that the development wasn't there. She was going to struggle. There was a lot of question marks for KK Timson. But the thing is like we all can make dumb like conclusions to things. Just like after game one of this season, when Caitlin Clark left the game twice to get her back realigned, and she just didn't look in any way aggressive. She looked like there were times where she'd be hyped the crowd or complain to a ref. She just looked normal. She looked dead. And like people were just kept getting in her ear for everything. It was a weird when I tweeted out something like, oh yeah, 2026 Paige is better than Caitlin. And it's like, that was a dumb take. That was a dumb take. Hilariously dumb take. Jump in the gun. But like we're allowed to have bad takes as humans. And when some of them are negative takes towards some of my favorite players or players on my favorite team, I love being wrong. I love being wrong in this situation. And someone in the comments section said I was right. Steph White watching her rival confirmed my opinion. No, I was wrong. Because I didn't say she hasn't developed. I jumped forward to the conclusion that based on the fact that I thought she was worse in January, like 8 months after being drafted, that it was done. I came to the conclusion of that she should have been cut instead of Passat, or she shouldn't have made the roster. And I was very wrong with that. Like you can be almost right, but jump too far and be wrong. Because I didn't think she was going to be there. So no, I was absolutely wrong. And I'm glad to be wrong because KK's hooping.